1 in 3 driving tests in the UK should include the emergency stop. Don't worry though, your driving examiner isn't going to suddenly spring it upon you at some random point during the test as you're driving through town. No, they're going to ask you to pull over at the side of the road in an appropriate place and explain that this is where they want you to do the emergency stop. They'll also tell you that they'll put their hand out when they tell you to stop, but before they do that, they may check over their shoulder just to make sure it's safe first. Don't do your mirrors when you do the stop. The difference between a planned stop and an emergency stop is you don't have time to plan it. You don't have time to check your mirrors first. Don't worry though, your examiner would have already checked it's safe. What they're testing you for is your reaction time. How quickly do you react to their instruction of stop? And overall, how quickly do you stop the car? Firstly, I'm going to show you how to do the emergency stop in a car with ABS. If you're from this part of the world, I'm in the UK, it's most likely you're driving a car with ABS. I'm making this video in 2022. At the end of the video, I will show you how to do the emergency stop without ABS, but for now, let's focus on this system. What does ABS stand for? Well, anti-lock braking system. Why is it important? It stops you from skidding, or it reduces your skid significantly. That's important because you can stop more quickly, but also you maintain your steering. If it's an emergency situation and you panic brake as hard as you can, you're likely going to lock all of your wheels and the car's going to skid, take longer to stop, and you're also going to lose your steering. So when you steer around an object, you're likely going to carry on straight into it. ABS automatically prevents that from happening so that you stop in a shorter distance but can also steer around any objects you need to steer around. It activates automatically. You don't have to switch it on, it's just there. When you brake hard, when it's needed, it's there for you. If you want to know if your car has ABS, well, this is how you know. I'll turn the engine off, look at your dials, and on this car it's around about here. When I turn the ignition on, there is ABS. The light comes on, the orange light to tell you the car has it, and it goes out to tell you that it's working. If the light stays on, that means there's something wrong with the system. I've turned the engine back on because I want it ready for this test I'm going to show you, for this demonstration, but also my camera's getting hot, it's hot in here and I'm getting hot in here, and we need the engine running to have the air conditioning working. So on your driving test, this is what you need to do, or if anything, in fact, not only on your driving test, but this is how you do an emergency stop. But I'm going to be explaining how it's going to happen on the driving test as I do it, so you're aware. The examiner will ask you to pull over at the side of the road and they'll say, this is where we're going to do the emergency stop. I'll put my hand out to say stop, and I may look over my shoulder to make sure it's safe. And then they'll ask you to carry on when it's safe. It's important now you drive normally. Do a normal speed and go up the gears normally. So this is what I do. This is how I normally move away. No one coming, no need to signal, there's no one to signal to, so I'll carry on now. Normal speed, normal gears. And when the examiner is happy it's safe and you're fast enough, they'll put their hand out and say stop. Then you've got to brake as hard as you can, as quickly as you can. Don't push the clutch down before the brake, because that delays your stop. Get the brake down. You can do brake and clutch at the same time if you wish, but it is better to brake first and then get the clutch down before you stall. So the examiner is getting ready to tell me to stop, and they go, watch my feet. They say stop, and then clutch down before I stall, and I kept my foot hard on the brake the whole time. I could feel the ABS system working. My brake pedal was pulsating up and down. I could hear little skids happening as the ABS was trying to work, because it doesn't stop the skids completely, but the vast majority of it stops. And I obviously pushed the clutch down before it stalled. Once you've finished the stop, breathe. You're going to have adrenaline. If you pull the handbrake up now, if you have a manual handbrake, you'll probably pull it up so high you won't get it off again. So breathe for a second, calm, and then pull the handbrake up gently. That means you can come off foot brake and you can put it in neutral and you can come off the clutch. The examiner is now going to say, thank you, I'm not going to ask you to do that again. And then they'll either tell you to pull over at the side of the road, or they'll tell you to move away when it's safe and carry on. Because they may want to pull you over at the side of the road if they want to give you some directions, maybe for your independent driving or do the sat-nav. So just do what they ask. But we're not parked at the side of the road now. We're sort of in the middle of our driving space, in the middle of our half. So you don't only have to check your roadside blind spot now, but you have to check the curbside blind spot as well before you go, because there's space there for cyclists to be cycling past. So they'll say, carry on, move away when it's safe, carry on. Clutch down, get your gear, move away how you usually move away. This is how I move away. And no one's coming. Check both blind spots, it's clear, no one to signal to, and I'll carry on. If there was a queue of cars behind me, waiting behind me for oncoming cars, if it was safe to move away and I've checked my blind spots and it's still safe, I'll signal and then carry on. I'll relieve the traffic. I won't make them wait behind me and wait for all of them to go past me before I go. I'll only wait for the cars behind if they're passing me or about to pass me. During the emergency stop, the car might start to steer a little bit to the right or left. Look forwards, look down the road, and try and make sure you keep it in a straight line with the steering. With ABS, this isn't going to happen much, but it might happen a bit. If the car starts moving to the right, turn the wheel to the left. The highway code says steer into the skid, which makes people think that if the car turns to the right, turn to the right, but no, that makes things worse. Always steer in the opposite direction. It's called opposite lock, so opposite lock of the steering to where the car is heading, and then the car will come back round. If the car starts steering to the right, start steering the opposite direction until the angle of the car stops increasing. Once the angle stops increasing, the car will come back soon. Don't keep adding steer because it will come back really quick and go into the other side. So the car starts heading towards the right, you start steering towards the left, it stops heading to the right and holds its angle, you hold your angle. The car starts to come back, then you straighten, so you stay straight when the car is straight and you don't overcorrect and go the other way. You will likely fail the driving test during the emergency stop if you don't react quick enough. So the examiner says stop and the examiner feels it took you too long to get on the brake, or you press the clutch before the brake, which delays your braking. You're more likely to fail though for not braking hard enough. Many new drivers don't like the sensation of being pushed forwards during the emergency stop, so they brake too gently. If the examiner feels that the car could have stopped significantly more quickly, they will likely fail you. You could also fail after the emergency stop for resting too quickly. So you brake, you stop, you finish the stop and you go, and then the car stalls and shoots forwards. Stalling isn't a fail as long as you stop the car and keep it stationary. If it stalls, it doesn't matter, but if it shoots forwards after the emergency stop, that will likely be a fail because you're lacking important control, stopping the car and keeping it stationary. So once you've stopped, keep your feet on those pedals until you have secured the car, handbrake and neutral. You could also fail when you go to move away after the emergency stop because you've got adrenaline running through your system and you make a bad decision and put out in front of someone making them brake. So be careful, take your time, take a breather. I know I said earlier, if there's a queue of cars waiting behind me, I would move away, but that's because there's a queue of cars waiting, they're stationary, I'm not making them brake, they're already not moving. And if they're waiting behind me because there's oncoming cars and they can't come round, well, I may as well relieve the traffic. Check, make sure it's safe, do both your blind spots after the emergency stop, signal, if they're still waiting, go. But you can't make people brake as you move away. You'll likely get a minor if you forget one of your blind spots before moving away, or both blind spots would be a minor. However, that could be a fail if there was something important in either of the blind spots that you needed to wait for. Here are 3 ways to stop your car without ABS. Number 1, brake as hard as you can, the car eventually skids to a stop. I don't recommend this. It's going to take longer to stop, you're going to damage your tyres, you're not going to be able to control your steering, and the car is likely going to rotate as you're stopping, which means if you did hit something, you'd hit it side on, which is worse than hitting it head on. Think about the shape of your car, where your protection is. Hitting things side on is worse. So I don't recommend that. I'm not going to demonstrate that. I can't demonstrate that because I'm not in a car without ABS, but I can demonstrate the other 2 methods. Method number 2 is known as cadence braking. I don't recommend this either because it's brutal and it's like a low skilled way of trying to replicate ABS. It's better than the first way, just slamming your foot on the brake and letting the car skid to a stop, but it's not better than the 3rd way that I'll show you soon. So I'm going to show you cadence braking now. I basically rapidly press the brake on and off as hard as I can and as quickly as I can until the car stops, so that I only do little skids and I maintain steering. Quite brutal though, and I doubt you're actually ever going to do this in a real emergency, which is why ABS is so important, because when you panic, you're likely just going to brake as hard as you can, and that computer really saves you. It's there for you when you're panicking. So I'll demonstrate cadence braking. Didn't want to go in the first gear first time then. It does sometimes happen in pretty much all cars I drive. Very rare though for that to happen. So get up to speed. I'm going to rapidly press the brake and come off the brake. There's a car behind. No, the car's pulled over, fortunately. Good. So I was going to have to abort this. I can still do it. So it's safe. Here goes. Watch my feet. Okay, yeah, you may still be able to steer, but when I'm braking, I want to stay on the brake. I don't want to have to keep pressing it. I'm not very experienced at doing that. That's why you probably saw me speed up a little bit towards the end. But yeah, at least you maintain your steering. It took me a while to stop though, didn't it? It took me quite a while. I'm just going to pull over now and explain. There's actually no one behind me. I don't know why I'm signalling. There's a car back there, but he's parked and he's got his bonnet open now, so I don't think he's coming anytime soon. So go pulled over at the side of the road, and I'll explain the third way. This is the way I recommend. This is the way I use. This car has ABS. So I can't lock up the wheels, I can't skid. But what I can do is when I brake, as I brake hard and the ABS starts to cut in, that's when I would be skidding if I didn't have ABS. I can then reduce the brake a little bit so that the ABS system isn't having to save me and do the braking for me. On the road, I would just use the ABS. In an emergency, I'll brake as hard as I can and I'll let the computer try and stop me as quickly as possible. But I also do track driving, and on the track, when I'm driving a car with ABS, I don't want to rely on ABS. I don't want to just brake as hard as I can into the corners with the ABS chattering away. I want to do what's known as threshold braking, when I stay on the limit of braking before the skid or before ABS has to intervene. How you do this is you have to go beyond the limit to find the limit. Every day, depending on the temperature, the road surface, the car you're driving, how hard you're able to brake before it skids or before ABS has to cut in varies. So the only way you can find out how hard you can brake is by going beyond the limit, braking too hard, feeling the ABS cut in or feeling it skid, and then reducing the brake a little bit. Not cadence braking where you're just stamping on the pedals quick and as hard as you can, but actually trying to do it with some intelligence there of, okay, this is how hard I can brake. I'm going to stay as close to that point as I can on the threshold of skidding or ABS. If it skids or if ABS cuts in, I'll reduce the brake a little bit and then try and find that limit again. There will be some skids when you're doing threshold braking, but there shouldn't be much. So here's a demonstration of the third way and the best way to stop a car without ABS in an emergency, although you won't do it this way because you'll be panicking unless you're an experienced racing driver or have a lot of track experience. You probably just panic and slam the brakes on. So I'm braking hard. If ABS cuts in or if it skids, I'll reduce the brake manually. I won't rely on the ABS computer to do it for me. So no one's behind, doing about 40 miles an hour. So braking quick, there's ABS, and then I stopped. So I only reduced the braking when there was ABS or it was skidding. Other than that, I was braking very hard and stopping very quickly. Now I must obviously make sure it's safe, absolutely no one around, and carry on. Didn't need to secure the car there because I wasn't going to be waiting for any amount of time. There's no need for me to wait. I was just going to carry on again. When stopping rapidly without ABS, that's when it's more important to leave the clutch to the last possible moment. Because when you're stopping rapidly without ABS, you're going to have to adjust the brake. And if you're off the clutch, you still have engine braking, which is going to help a bit. A small amount, but it will help a bit. If you forget the clutch or stall it, that's not a problem. You still stop the car. It's not going to take you any longer to stop. You want everything you can have here to help you stop in as short a time as possible. If you think the video is helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for car insurance, check out links to Collingwood and Confused in the description. If you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, Collingwood are there for you because you can do so without affecting the owner's policy, taking away a big stress from the owner of the car that you're learning in. Via the link at the moment, there's up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card. If you want to insure your own car, check out the link to confused.com. You fill out one quote form and get loads of quotes back to compare who's cheapest. And one of my favourite bits is you can change your car on that quote as many times as you like, which is handy when you're trying to compare how much it costs to insure different cars. Using the links doesn't cost you anything, but it does support the channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.